Yes.
Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, apologies. I didn't know you had given me the floor. Mr. Speaker, I wanted to react to the statement by Senator, two statements actually, Senator Mundigi and then also Senator Said Chute. Let me start with Senator Mundigi's statement. Mr. Speaker, I like the angle that Senator Mundigi has pursued, where we are asking of the Ministry of Agriculture to furnish this House, Mr. Speaker, with details on the plans that they have to ensure that there is flawless distribution, Mr. Speaker, of the fertilizer program. Mr. Speaker, this is one of the signature success stories of this administration, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, because of the many theories that are being peddled by prophets of doom about what this administration has achieved in the last 8 months, we have missed an important celebration. When this administration came to office, Mr. Speaker, there was a bill of 8 billion Kenya shillings at the Ministry of Agriculture to register farmers and map them out for purposes of distribution of fertilizer, Mr. Speaker. But this being a prudent administration, Mr. Speaker, we sat down and using the administrative officers, DCCs, chiefs, sub-chiefs, who are previously being used by the previous administration, Mr. Speaker, to conduct political activities and dismally, performing dismally while at it, Mr. Speaker, we use them well because your chief, Mr. Speaker, knows what size of land you have and what you're cultivating or tilling on that particular land, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, when it comes to registration of farmers, they are the best, most best place, Mr. Speaker, to draw out a map of each and every farmer in this country, Mr. Speaker. Out of that program, more than 6 million farmers, Mr. Speaker, have benefited out of this program. Spent perhaps less than 50 million Kenya shillings to carry out this program, Mr. Speaker, something which the previous administration had budgeted over 8 billion Kenya shillings to undertake, Mr. Speaker. But what Senator Mundigi is asking of the Ministry of Agriculture, Mr. Speaker, is a valid concern. That after the registration of the 6 million farmers, Mr. Speaker, and an increase of more than 200,000 hectares of land under cultivation on this program, Mr. Speaker, that it is now time to upscale this conversation and ensure that farmers don't have to travel for long distances. That my farmers, for example, in Kipkelion West Sub-County, don't have to take the matatu all the way to the Kedoa NCPB stores, Mr. Speaker, to pick 1 or 2 bags of fertilizer, Mr. Speaker. That government must find ways of ensuring the last mile exercise of this program, Mr. Speaker, is well drawn out, either by use of the list structure of the devolved unit, that is the wards, ensuring that in collaboration with our county governments, you ensure you find a safe storage for the fertilizers that are due for farmers in a particular ward, or if that becomes even difficult, because, Mr. Speaker, that would be an enormous task. If I think of my own ward of Kabianga, where I come from in Kericho County, Mr. Speaker, everybody is a farmer, and everybody expects fertilizer. So if you say that you place it at any of the centers within that particular ward, Mr. Speaker, it will mean that you have hundreds of thousands of bags, and therefore subject to risk of theft and the following. Perhaps by use of agrovets, Mr. Speaker, because in every town or small center, Mr. Speaker, in this country, at least in places where they practice farming, Mr. Speaker, there is an agrovet. And I'm sure, Mr. Speaker, because this is a promise that we made and was in our manifesto, Mr. Speaker, that it is possible to register them and have them carry out the last mile exercise, Mr. Speaker, so that farmers can just simply walk to their center. They will not even need to hire boda boda or anything, Mr. Speaker. On their bags, on their bags, Mr. Speaker, they would be able to find this fertilizer, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, I hope that our colleague, Senator Mithika Linturi, is listening to the conversation in the Senate this afternoon, hearing that the concern that senators have on behalf of the farmers that they represent, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that is how you feed your people. I say that, Mr. Speaker, because I saw our colleagues from the minority side yesterday saying that if we want them to stop causing the wanton destruction of property that they are carrying out in the country, that we give people food, Mr. Speaker. How else do you give people food? Food doesn't fall from the sky. It is cultivated in people's farms. That's why we are giving out this program. That's why we are seated here. That's why Senator Mundigi is asking of the Ministry of Agriculture that they execute this program with military precision and ensure that every farmer receives the due bag of fertilizer to them, so that we can have a prosperous and a country that is well fed, so that people can work and not have to carry sufurias on their head, Mr. Speaker. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, is the statement by Senator Said Chute. That's an interesting one, Mr. Speaker, because I have seen the list of demands that he has placed, Mr. Speaker. It will be interesting to know, perhaps, where is it that you collate all this information, because it relates to information on about 7 or 6 counties, Mr. Speaker, on the various contractors that they hired or they procured for goods and services, Mr. Speaker. Perhaps maybe Office of the Controller of Budget, but then the Controller of Budget only approves what counties have sent. I don't think we have a centralized place, but this will be interesting. I don't want to preempt the work that our colleagues in the Finance and Budget Committee will do, Mr. Speaker, but it will be interesting to know where you'd source, or whether each county will individually file their own for comparison purposes. But it's important, Mr. Speaker, we get to know, because, Mr. Speaker, the conversation shouldn't be just about the northern frontier. Mr. Speaker, there are very few contractors who, when we began in 2013, the devolution cycle, did business with county governments, that are still in active business simply by relying on county governments alone, Mr. Speaker. Many have either left that trade or switched on to do other things, Mr. Speaker, because one of the, perhaps, in fact, I saw some people say, working or doing business with county governments should be included in one of their 1,000 ways to die, Mr. Speaker, in this country, because you can wait for your payment for many, many years. Many Kenyans have been auctioned, Mr. Speaker, because of just doing or plying their trade with county governments, especially those that do business in the last financial year before elections, Mr. Speaker. Lucky are you if the next administration moves on to pay you. And therefore, we must have safeguards, Mr. Speaker. I know Senator Mariam Sheikh had proposed to us the prompt payment bill, and many of us, we held different views. I saw the response from the Committee on Finance about the challenges that you'll have with implementation. But we must still be able to address this particular issue of payment to contractors across administrations, Mr. Speaker. The fact that I did work in Kilifi County, Mr. Speaker, under the governorship of Amason Jeffa Kingi, does not mean, Mr. Speaker, that when the new governor comes into office, that I'm denied an opportunity to be paid, Mr. Speaker. This is a problem that is prominent in all our 47 devolved units, Mr. Speaker, and many contractors continue to suffer. So I hope when this committee consider this request by Senator Chute, Mr. Speaker, they will also find time to listen to the challenges with all these other contractors, so that as a House, perhaps you can reach a resolution and have a firm solution to this particular issue, Mr. Speaker, in the greater interest of the people who do business with our county governments. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Abbas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to support